What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have another deck list. We're on number 4 now, which means we have like almost 16 more of these to go. We will have our updated best decks for the Atlanta Challenge event, possibly Sunday. I believe it should be up. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead, jump on into some gameplay footage, and then we will swing over to the deck profile. The Dreamborn link is also down below. So we're playing the Sapphire Steel Wheel Resist ramp deck, whatever we want to go by calling it. And we'll talk about the changes that the deck has naturally gone through in this format. Our first match is against a Green Steel variant, and we are going second. Green Steel has so many different ways to play. I'm like, I really don't like my hand at all. I should have got rid of the whole new world there too. Not really sure why I didn't, but nonetheless, now we have 2 copies. Something you really don't want to see in this deck. I don't remember if my initial thought was, well, if it's discard, I'd like to have this for sure, so that way I can hurry up, dump my hand in ramp, and then play the whole new world. I'm going to go with it and say that's why we did it. So our opponent comes down with a Captain Hook for his turn 1 play. We don't have our 1-drop. We're going to get rid of a Cogsworth, and we have to pass turn. Having 2 Cogsworth can be very strong, but there's a good chance we don't get to that point, so that's why I felt like it was pretty safe to go ahead and ink one of them. Our opponent having a big think here to see what he wants to do. We see Daisy Duck go to the Inkwell, and maybe a Mr. Smee come down, or a Flynn Rider potentially. And there's the Flynn Rider, so we do get a little aggro. Due to us not having an answer to it, his hook is free to quest this turn. Now we can go ahead and get our Smee down, so we can start to interact with our opponent a little bit. Turn 3 from him, we could see a variety of things. You could see Ursula, you could see Prince John, you could see Little Ursula to see your hand and know if he's in the clear for his playline. And he actually doesn't have a 3-drop, so we're going to go ahead, get our Quill down, and start ramping. We're not going to need 2 whole new worlds, so that one's easy. Next turn might be a little more difficult. I didn't feel like questing and losing out to the Hood just yet. Also, I didn't want to have to discard a card to take out the Flynn just yet. Our opponent inks 1 more. And then now we see the Prince John come down. So he must have drew it for turn, because otherwise he probably would have played it last turn. Let's see. Sudden Chill being sung by Flynn. That is unfortunate. We lose the Zeus. We could have challenged the Flynn, discarding the Zeus. Our opponent wouldn't have been able to draw a card. However, we did not see the Prince John plus Sudden Chill follow-up coming. We'll go Popsicle. Now we're just going to kind of get rid of our hand. I needed here to... I didn't want to... His board presence is better than mine, so I didn't want a whole new world. I'd rather use Beast to slowly build my hand back, and Grab Your Swords to obviously board wipe him. And our opponent just says, you know what? I can't come back from that, and we win. I do think it was premature. With me just having Smee on board, 1 in hand, I really think that was premature. I don't think there's any deck in the game that should scoop in that scenario. But anyway, he did. So moving forward. Amber Amethyst, Hyper Aggro, and again, we're going second. Luckily though for us, he missed his 1-drop. In this matchup, I really try to prioritize getting like the Captain Hooks, the Smees, multiple 1 and 2-drop cards. If I can get 3 or 4 of them, I feel like I'm sitting pretty good. Obviously, something like Grab Your Swords also is going to go very good in this matchup, as most of his cards only have 1 willpower. So we see him playing the Jiminy Cricket package, which also, it's evasive, and outside of that, I don't see a huge utility in it. The drawing a card, if they have if Pinocchio is... I don't know, not the greatest, but I guess it's evasive with the chance to draw, so it's a little bit better than Pascal. Also, always has evasive. We do see another Pinocchio come down. So again, this is why I like to have multiple characters in the early game. We go ahead and we can get rid of our Smee there to get the Gaston down instead, who's a big threat questing, and also helps us dig for a card to see what we want to get to. We're getting kind of far into this, so he's got the 3 ink, only 2, puts us in a really good spot. That's a downside to the way a lot of hyper aggro is played between Baloo, Maleficent, Lilo, Pinocchio. There's so many uninkable cards, even the lanterns in this build, which, I mean, that's a big reason that I personally don't like this type of build, but I see why some people do play it. So he's going to get the 2 lures from the Baloos, but we really need to start getting after his cards. He's going to be able to go to 15 here questing, and that Arthur definitely applies a lot of pressure, and the Lilo also comes down. So now we can go ahead ink, and well, we're going to double ink because we're going to whole new world here, and if we hit grab your swords, we essentially are going to come right back in this one, and we do hit it. We play multiple of them, so it's not unheard of. The only thing left now is that Arthur, and having that 1 health, we want to make sure we get rid of that, because otherwise he could play anything, quest, bounce it, and have a 3 lore play, which is something I did not want. We get a Benja down, who can go ahead then and pop one of his lanterns. I know I have hook in hand, so that's why we didn't quest with Smee, because I want to be able to protect it from getting damaged. Although, looking back now, we do have Cogsworth, who would protect the Smee from being damaged. So that's a misplay on our part. Our opponent comes down with 2 piglets. We draw a bell. Well, we can't play 2 Tinkerbells, so we're not going to be able to get rid of those piglets. He's got 18, because you know he's going to play a character on his turn, sitting on board. What else? Goat, bounce goat, wins the game. He's not going to be able to double goat, and he doesn't have enough for fox. So essentially it has to be goat, snake in hand, and he wins the game. We see goat come down, and I'm like, okay, now I'm actually kind of nervous. Our opponent has, or no, fox would work because of the lantern. But then we see the piglet come down, which is essentially our opponent admitting defeat, and we get that win. We do have one more replay here. Again, another green steel variant, and there's the Bucky discard. There's the shift control. There is the Prince John discard without Bucky. I have my 1 and 2 drops. I have some ink, and they're just good overall 5-cost cards. We could have went for more items and then had our draw engine with Hiram, things like that, but I kind of liked the Cogsworth and Beast, because if we can get to them, they're going to just put in a lot of work. So I knew we had our 1 and 2 drops, and we had potential ink if we needed it, if our mulligan was bad. We're going to follow our opponent's hand here, and well, hooks me sounds pretty good to me. So we're going to follow him, like I said, hooks me for both of us. The Bucky comes down, so it's Bucky discard. You can expect something like the Jafar Snake to come down next turn, Donald Duck to come down next turn as their 4-drop. That's going to cost me to discard. I want to quest with Smee here to start making him trade into my board so I can trade with his, and we wait and see. So Donald Duck is what comes down. Lucky Dime, not going to get to it, especially before wheeling, so it's a very easy discard. Next turn might not be as easy, so if we can get our Beast down, we get that extra draw, which is going to be very, very helpful. So also, again, we kind of just force our opponent to start interacting with us, and we both trade our hooks and Smees while gaining 2 lore in the process. I'm going to go ahead and gain the draws off of the Donald here, because if I can avoid it, I'd like to keep the Whole New World and the Cogsworth in my hand. Unfortunately, an Ursula does come into play, which means we lose our Whole New World anyway, but it wasn't a Floodborn, so we do still get to keep a card. We're going to go ahead and get the Mickey, ramp a little bit, and then still ink the Smee instead of playing it, because I wanted to get my ink count up faster than my opponent. Again, taking the card off the Donald because I'd rather not ink the Cogsworth. Prince John comes down, and I was really expecting a discard card here. Instead, though, we do lose our beast, which is unfortunate as he's a big threat to take out, say, Donald Duck in one swing. But we draw into a Gaston, which is going to be pretty good, and we can see Whole New World on next turn. I was like, Whole New World, and I'm like, maybe I go Lucky Dime. At the end of the day, I was like, no, you pretty much have to go Whole New World. There's no reason not to. So we see what our other cards are, and it's, well, Cogsworth or the other, and I'm like, well, we'll just grab Cogsworth and then ink a different one. And we're still gonna, like I said, continuing to get our draws from the Donald Duck just to give us more options when we inevitably need to discard a card. Cogsworth, Whole New World, well, kind of feels like we just had this hand not too long ago. Our opponent's building up a board presence, so I don't want to wheel him when he's ahead on the board. So I go to discard that because soon Belle is going to be able to quest for 5 on her own. Cogsworth Resist is going to be very helpful. And, well, we get our inkable card, so we can throw both of them down. Again, Belle not going to be able to quest for 5 this turn. However, next turn she can. Prince John is open, so we take it out with our Mickey, knowing that his Robin Hood can take out our Mickey now and gain him the 2 lore. However, it was just something we kind of needed to do. If we hit an inkable card and he can't take out the Gaston, which he may be able to, like Donald into Gaston and then Robin Hood into Gaston. So I'm okay with that, though. It puts a lot of damage on him. He's going to get the 2 still from the Hood, and another Bucky comes down. But we have 7, assuming we hit an inkable card. We don't. But we hit Whole New World, so we're going to sing that with our Cogsworth. Now we have an inkable card. We're going to get rid of the Titans. It's just useless in this matchup. Quest for 5 with the Bell. And as long as our opponent can't get 14, we're probably winning this game. We can go ahead and grab your swords, just as like an insurance policy for next turn. Do our regular ink for the turn. And just in case, we're going to throw down another Bell. So essentially he needs to get rid of both Bells, the Gaston, or the Mickey plus Cogsworth. There's a lot that he needs to get rid of, and I don't think he's got the ink resource to do it. Something like, in this scenario, what would it be? Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would allow him to get rid of all 3 of them. So we're sitting pretty good. Just 1 Bell, gonna quest for the game. That was a bit. We had a few replays, like I said. Let's go ahead now and jump on over to the deck profile and talk about the cards we're playing. You've seen it on the screen the whole time. If you're interested in giveaways and other things, Patreon link is down below with all the information. So, jumping into the deck profile. We do play 16 on inkables, which for me is a bit higher than I'd like to on a lot of them. However, in this deck, it kind of makes sense, especially when you have things like Fishbone Quill that you can ink uninkable cards in your hand. The deck does come in just under $400, so it is a little bit on the pricier side. We play 11 1-drops, only 4 2s, and then our 3, 4, 5 cost curve is where we peak out at. And then we do have our heavier 6s and 7s. Our 1-drop character being our Captain Hook, we're playing 4. 4 Smees is our only 2-drop. 3 Mickey Mouse, the first uninkable card in the deck. 2 Benjas to help take care of items and quest for multiple lore. We are on 4 Bell instead of Tamatoa. Tamatoa is not really popular in this deck. He's more popular in like a red-blue combination. But I really like Bell at 4 to close out games as a cheap option when you ramp up a bunch, especially because you already saw it. Lucky Dime has been finding its way into a lot of the decks that are topping these bigger events. 4 Hiram makes absolute perfect sense. He's a great draw card. 4 Cogsworth because that resist can put in work. 4 Beast because kind of like Hiram, drawing cards is really good. We played 2 Gaston. He is uninkable, and again, the Ruby Sapphire deck is a little more important for this card, so you might see it played at 3 there. But for this deck, I think 2 was more than enough. He quests for 3, he's a 4/4, and he can grab you a card in the process. Lastly, for our character lineup, we have our Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, playing 4 of her because, well, just dealing 1 damage passively to an entire board is really good. We played 2 Titans because certain things like a Queen's Castle or even like a item such as like a flute or something, like this card has a lot of utility, and anytime it doesn't have utility, it makes great ink fodder because who knew you needed ink to play the game anyway. Playing 3 Develop Your Brains because looking at 2 cards and adding 1 is kinda good. 3 Then Along Came Zeus, 1 Let It Go, 4 Whole New Worlds, and 2 Grab Your Swords. The only change I kinda considered here was playing 3 Swords and 2 Zeuses. However, I think that would be a little more dependent on how much aggro do you expect to play at your local. If there's a lot of aggro, maybe switch the Swords and Zeus ratios. In addition to that, we are playing the 2 Swords, but we also have the 4 Tinkerbell to just help do massive damage to an entire board. Lastly, we're playing 4 Popsicle, 4 Fishbone, and 2 Lucky Dimes to help close out games and go for potentially 10 just off of a bell. Well, that's it guys for today's video. Thank you for watching, and until next time, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. We're getting very close to 3,200 subscribers. The journey awaits everyone. Take care.